Hey, Nick here. I continue to have a degree in film. I need to give you a disclaimer up front. This part of the list is a little kooky and a little spooky, okay? It's darker and grittier than the previous lists. There's some disturbing scenes and loud bangs and some violence throughout. And there are some picks that may or may not have premiered on television, so be careful. Number 80, Jack Goes Boating.
Maybe a little goodnight kiss.
Maybe.
You know, nothing overwhelming.
Okay.
Philip Seymour Hoffman was my favorite actor. This was his first and only movie as a director, and it has the same kind of glowing energy behind it as his work in front of the camera did. This was a great salve right after his devastating departure. There's a lot of mystery and open space behind every line of dialogue as it exists on paper that just feels tailored for actors to fill with whatever degree of delicious subtext they want. It makes perfect sense to me that Hoffman was so attracted to this kind of writing and wanted it to anchor his first movie. I'm so grateful we got to see this side of him as an artist. And the whole thing is basically just a guy trying to make a nice meal for his girlfriend. What could possibly go wrong? Number 79, The Martian.
I gotta figure out a way to grow 3 years worth of food here on a planet where nothing grows. Luckily, I'm a botanist.
This is really a hyper-elaborate episode of Mythbusters, with the question being, what does one do when stranded on Mars? And the science behind it is so compelling and well-researched, it may as well be based on a true story. A lot of silly people actually believed it was. It's so difficult to make this kind of stuff up and keep everything within the bounds of the possible and still have it all feel dramatic. And on top of that, writing all the characters in an entertaining, funny way. I just love the feedback loop of finding an impossible problem, using science to solve it, and then moving on to the next one. Number 78, Nathan for You, Finding Francis.
This is kind of a fun trip, huh?
Yeah.
Just the boys.
Mm-hmm.
This is the feature-length series finale of Nathan for You, one of the best shows ever, and it is the most naked and ambitious episode in its 4-year run. Nathan uses every resource at his disposal to bring closure to an aging Bill Gates impersonator over a long-lost love, and in the process he exposes his own insecurities, both as the television character and the real Nathan Fielder. It makes me sad to think about how this movie expands the scope of the show, which was already so hard to define, into something even more indefinable just as it came to an end. But part of the purpose of the movie is exploring the limits of self-documentation, and the show really couldn't go any further in this direction without becoming a whole other entity. Number 77, Mommy, Dead, and Dearest.
People thought of us as, the sweetest mother-daughter family ever. The best two people in the world.
What illnesses did your mom say that you had?
This is a true crime doc about a horrific mother-daughter relationship defined by made-up illnesses, some of which became real from the constant unnecessary treatments. Gypsy, our hero, or anti-hero, depending on how you measure that kind of stuff, is an amazing subject with such self-awareness and emotional intelligence garnered from an absolutely tragic childhood. No one could make up this cast of characters. They're just too bizarre to be fake. And it's fascinating to contemplate the holes in the justice system that, as we know it, can't really account for every kind of murder. And maybe I've already said too much. Number 76, Green Room.
He's got 6 bullets.
For real?
We all go at once.
Guys, hold off a sec.
For what?
We haven't done anything.
Doesn't matter.
Okay. They're called cartridges. The bullet is a part that enters your brain if you keep talking shit.
This is just a good old-fashioned, scary as hell survival horror movie. It takes all of 15 minutes for the situation to get really messy and for me to wonder how in God's name these people are going to escape this room. And I've worked at escape rooms for years, so I know a thing or two about how to get out of them. The danger never stops amping up. I was glued to Green Room, even though I also wanted to run as far away from it as I could. It gave me that childhood feeling of catching something on television really late at night, long after my bedtime, that I had no business watching. Patrick Stewart as an old neo-Nazi is inspired casting, and R.I.P. Anton Yelchin, one of the biggest and best faces of his generation. Damn it. Number 75, Melancholia.
The earth is evil. We don't need to grieve for it. What? Nobody will miss it.
Lars von Trier wanted to frame an apocalypse movie from the perspective of a person in the depths of depression because he believed, as a melancholic himself, such a person might actually be best equipped to deal with the end of the world. Apocalypse movies are inescapably personal because whatever the filmmaker truly values must be brought to the surface with the most urgency possible, and for von Trier this feels like a paradoxical fantasy about embracing his vision of the world and becoming engulfed in his truth, no matter how unpleasant that might be. Number 74, The Revenant. Alejandro Gonzalez Inarritu created what can only be described as a god cam to bring us this absurdly brutal adventure/ride movie. He floats like an angel over the roughest of terrain. He dollies around people with the sort of locked-on precision I would only expect from a third-person shooter on a PlayStation that is yet to come. And the elemental struggle at the heart of this movie between DiCaprio and Hardy is as fierce and frothy as it is fun. Number 73, Parasite.
뭐야? 소독해?
요즘도 저런 걸 하네. 그러게요.
창문 닫아.
나도 봐. 공짜로 집안에 소독도 하고 곱등이도 없애고.
그래. 요새 곱등이 너무 많아.
Listen, I'm a huge sucker for Mrs. Doubtfire scenarios, and this movie has 5 to 7 of those happening on top of each other at any given time. Every character is harboring a secret or a huge lie that must be maintained at all costs and is forever on the verge of blowing up in their faces. It walks the tightrope of having a perfect, hilarious tone, but somehow managing to stay completely grounded. Everything feels like it matters and it can break. And it's got the whole rich-poor cultural allegory, tapestry thing going on, but it completely functions in a vacuum as this unclassifiable story of two very different families. There's a reason this movie defied the odds and became the first non-English movie to win Best Picture. Number 72, Dunkirk. Dunkirk is basically a collection of astounding war scenes stacked on top of each other in the most compelling order possible. It's really cool and refreshing to see Nolan use his time trickery and big boy IMAX visuals for something straight up, just a war movie free of any of his trademark Nolan-y mind games. There's a distinct lack of memorable or even distinguishable characters here, but I cannot deny the awesome power of these sequences. When I left the IMAX theater in 2017, I thought Dunkirk would only play as well as it does on an enormous screen, but I was so happy to be wrong when I watched it again on a tiny television and remained mesmerized. Number 71, Spiderman Into the Spiderverse.
Selecting a bagel. Act super normal.
Spiderman?
You know, that's funny. I get that a lot.
Hey.
Hands up! Okay, now we do a switchy.
What? Get back here! Where do you think you're going? Hey,
swing, just like I taught you.
When did you teach me that?
Everyone in the world knows who Spider-Man is and how he works, so he's the perfect character to go beyond conventional superhero origin stories or bad guy of the month plot lines and give us something that feels so new, at least in movie terms. Let's remix Spider-Man, let's make him 100 times more inclusive, let's see how far we can stretch this concept. The animation here feels like magic. There's so much going on in every frame. It's so visually sophisticated, so dense without ever feeling like too much. It's just a joy for my eyeballs. And ditto the writing. It's classic Lord and Miller style joke density where not a breath is wasted not being clever or emotionally resonant, but it also doesn't ever feel like it's trying too hard. The soundtrack is bangin', the cast is out of this world, and I left with this renewed, not awoken since childhood sense of wanting to be Spider-Man and also wanting everyone else to be their own Spider-Man. I think my Spider-Man would definitely have a degree in film. That does it for 80 to 71. All my lists are like children. I don't like to pick favorites, but 70 to 61 is definitely better than this list. So please stop by for that one. And don't forget, I have a degree in film. Thanks so much for joining me again. Bye for now.